today is Marina Sedai, and we are talking about something that is never talked about, and that's lawyer communication. In fact, immigration lawyer communication with our clients, with our staff. And you may think, oh, who cares about this? Why is this important? Well, tune in because you're going to find out. This is going to be awesome. All right, so we're going to dive right into this, and it's quite interesting when you think about immigration lawyer communication. As I bring Marina on, one of the things that she alluded to me is that there is a huge disconnect between us as lawyers thinking we're just good at everything. If we made it through law school, we've got everything under control, and for sure we're great communicators. We write well, we can speak. Heck, look at me here. I'm running this goofy little YouTube live stream that's slowly getting better over time. But in the beginning, if you look at those beginning days, it was pretty sad. But the reality is we just assume that we're really, really good at communicating. And so when Marina suggested this topic to me, I thought, what the heck is she talking about? How does this even formulate a conversation that we can do on our Immigration Nation episode? But now that I fully grasp it, it is phenomenal. So whether you're a lawyer, yes, this is directed to you. Whether you are someone who is considering hiring a representative to help you with your immigration applications, and even, well, it pretty much encompasses everyone, general communication. This is going to be an awesome one. So I'm going to bring in Marina. Here she is, Marina Sedai. How are you, Marina?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Okay, right off the bat, what's going through your mind? So where did this topic, this idea come from? When you could have talked about anything about immigration, why did you drill down on this?
This it comes out of lessons learned. And what I really wish that especially when I was a junior lawyer, that this conversation would have been ongoing so that I could have learned. But instead, I learned the hard way through my own mistakes or watching others' mistakes. And also, still I'm making mistakes. And probably during our chat right now, I may very well contradict myself. So it's about learning a better way. And also about being willing to say that, we might be lawyers, but it doesn't mean we write and speak as well as we might think we do. Are we always getting what we want out of the way we communicate? So I have a few lessons.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting, over time, you start to realize, how far you've come. And I think hopefully as we become more seasoned as lawyers, we start to realize we have a little bit more self-awareness, and we can look backwards in time and realize, wow, now I understand why I struggled so much with my staff. If that was the case, I can speak for myself. Yes, it was. Now I understand why things just seem to go so much easier with my clients. And by no means do I claim in any way, Marina, that I've got this communication thing figured out, because as we talked about, or at least I did in the intro, sometimes we lack the ability to understand really how bad we are, and we make these assumptions. But no, this is an awesome topic. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. And there's no better way to learn than from the mistakes made by somebody else when they're willing to share them, right?
Absolutely. All right. So if you like, I'll just launch right into it.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, I'm going to talk about, how we speak with our clients, and a little bit about our staff, and then broaden it out to everyone, colleagues, our government colleagues too. And one thing I'll say is that through all of this, if we think we're really good communicators, we should check in with our families, because they'll tell us.
Yeah.
So as we go through this, yes, we can pause and think of times our family might have said, missing the mark.
I should probably, Marina, what I should do is just open this guest view into 3 windows and bring my wife on to give a little bit of thoughts on how well this person who thinks he can communicate very, very well really does. So I agree. There is a level of honesty uh, and very blunt, blunt communication that would probably come back to me. So
Yeah, I hear teenagers are quite the experts at setting us straight as well. So,
apparently,
all right. Well, so with clients, first of all, especially when I was, early in my career, so that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, we're primates, monkey see, monkey do. Even if we're not consciously copying others, that's exactly what we're doing. We look to the more experienced lawyers, how do they interact with clients, and we pick up their habits, for better or worse sometimes. And I started to mimic some examples that I had, and I found that it didn't work well. I had one client who later called me on it, and I thought, okay, I have to start thinking about what really works here and what doesn't. So one thing I've learned, for many years, if someone came to me for a consultation or they're coming in for a meeting, I usually would, have enough documents and information. I thought I knew what it was about, and I would launch into all my advice that I had for them. And I've finally learned that no matter how much I think I know the whole story, I probably don't. And in any case, even if I do, it's really very important to give the other person, the client, who usually has a bit of stress attached with their issue at hand, a chance to speak. There's something calming about getting one's story out. So I start with listening. I will ask, family class case. So tell me, I know this and this and this about your story. I'm up on everything that you've given me so far, but I want to hear from you. What is your story from the moment you met? Or you're a student on a postgrad work permit. Tell me, well, why did you select this area of study? And what's your ultimate goal in your career and in your immigration process? How has that evolved? And if we have a talker, we might want to put limits on it, like, if you can tell me in 5 minutes. But most of the time, people have a good sense of how to convey their story. And most of the time, I get some very important information that I need to consider from hearing their story from them firsthand.
Marina, one question I have is, and this is my opportunity to grill you now. So to what extent do you use intake forms to try to characterize the four corners of the consult, before it happens? So do you use intake forms where the client has an opportunity to tell you what, really what their issues are and what's most important? Or do you just, not use them essentially and allow the client to talk during the consult?
I have discovered that, well, one of the reasons clients come to us is because they don't like forms. They don't want to have to deal with them. And so we do need an intake form. Need to know the issue at hand. Should I even be taking this consultation?
Right.
Am I the best lawyer for them, or should I move them on to refer them out to someone else? But beyond just gathering the very basics, issue, you know, doing the conflict check for other parties on file, etc. No, as a rule, I try not to have anyone fill out much of a form. Sometimes people would like to send an email and tell a bit of their story that way. But even then, it's usually only a few sentences, and it can't replace the person telling me their story.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
once I hear what they have to say, and I've jotted down the additional information, and then it's my turn. And a couple of things I have learned is that the client usually needs to know what the course of my advice and what I'm going to tell them, because otherwise they have questions on their mind and they're not they don't know where I'm going with this. They asked they wanted to know about temporary residence with maybe an eye to permanent residence. And I really need to start with explaining the permanent residence first in some cases and go backwards. So I tell them that. Okay, this is how I'm going to go about giving you advice. I'm first going to talk. It's going to seem like I'm going backwards, but there's a good reason for that. We will discuss the work permit options. That's coming. so that they have the lay of the land and they know, if their questions are being answered, if they should wait or interject. Also on this, being on Zoom, there's another lesson I've learned as well. And you'll notice I didn't do it this time. So this is what I mean by, I'm learning, and I'm learning how to make habits of these things. It's telling people, look, while I'm on Zoom with you, you're going to see me looking down here because I'm taking notes. You're going to see me looking at my other screens. I'm always paying attention, and I'm always with you and listening. But I'm looking at these screens while I'm listening so that I can bring in information that you need. Because otherwise, it's really disconcerting if I'm talking to someone or they're talking and I'm looking over here. It has an emotional effect on people. They feel like, you're not listening to me. Are you here?
That's a really good point, Marina, because when I do my notes, it's all electronic. So I hate paper. And so within my intake system, I use Clio. I have the ability to make notes. And so I actually type while I am communicating with the client. And in some cases, I even share my screen. And so they can even see me, making notes right on the screen, depending upon what we're doing together. Sometimes we're comparing a reference letter to make sure that it matches with the proper knock. And so, but I can absolutely see what you're talking about. If they hear this click, 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 click while they're talking to me, and I don't, frame this, look, I don't want to miss anything. This is important notes. And so I'm still fully focused on what you're saying. I can see that if you did not qualify that, it would seem like, wow, this person what are they, answering emails? They're not even, paying attention to what I'm saying. And that is one of the pitfalls of Zoom or any, Teams or whatever you're using, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to, the other person needs to know that we haven't checked out. So yes. So then, the other thing then is, in addition to listening and getting the information and preparing someone for the conversation, most of the time people have a fair amount of anxiety. And so I have learned over time, I didn't understand really the extent to which most people have anxiety in the early days of my practice as a junior lawyer. And I get it now. And it makes perfect sense. So leading with, we need to give people the information on the risks, but we can do it with language that doesn't, stimulate unnecessarily those negative feelings. So rather than saying, oh, that could be a problem, I've seen emails starting out that way, or conversations starting out that way, or even one, this is a staff person who came to me once and they said, I have good news and I have bad news. And I'm like, I couldn't even feel like,
yeah,
just tell me. So I, just get straight to it. I give the information. I'm not using alarming language. Now, 1 out of 50 people might be unusually relaxed and perhaps not taking these situations seriously enough. That's pretty rare. Really, I think it's about 2% of clients, but it does happen. And in that case, the communication requires a raising of anxiety to protect them. It's in their own interest. So I say, if you were to do that and be non-compliant and work without authorization, then this is how this could go down. And I give a visual description of, being arrested, put in handcuffs, going into the van. So on occasion, that kind of communication is necessary, but most of the time it's not. People are already scared and they need the information calmly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're so right, Marina. Right? You are so right, because I just had a consultation yesterday with someone who was looking to see if their Canadian work experience would work. They're actually in the US now, but it was older experience. And he was trying to determine whether or not it could potentially work. And in the end, no. And there were limited pathways. And we went on some other discussions about, accompanying family members, or whether a spouse could go first as a student and then have him come back on an open work permit. And I said, well, your spouse already has a master's degree. And so you're probably going to face a little bit of struggle justifying why going to school in Canada after you've already obtained a master's in the US, how that's going to fly. And the response was, well, we just won't say anything. And I have this tendency, Marina, I've got this reaction built into me that's basically stop talking. Okay, this is where we're not even going to go down this path. You realize that that is misrepresentation. We're not saying anything, that we're not lying. And I said, look, there is misrepresentation by omission that is every bit as damaging and as harmful as outright lying. And so we had this little discussion, and I can tell you that my communication style changed drastically the moment I saw this person's just callous and just cavalier nature to misrepresentation. And sometimes, you bet, rarely we do get clients like that. And it's, from my perspective, it's almost more self-preservation for me. Now, what is this person going to twist out of what I'm telling them? And so, there's this desire always to make sure that they understand that from my perspective, yeah, that's not cool. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, in addition to, ensuring that our advice is clearly communicated and properly construed, it really is about protecting them. I mean, on that rare occasion, a gentle shake of the shoulders can really be worth every penny spent on that legal advice. So yes, but I'm glad to say that most people want to be compliant. Contrary to what some believe, people really do generally want to follow the rules, and they're scared. There's a lot of people who are scared, have a fear of authority. So anyway, I should, in mind of our time, I'll carry on. So the other thing is, at the end, going back to this, when I'm finished talking, most lawyers will say, well, do you have any further questions for me? That's just a natural. Yeah. But what I've also learned to do is when they're finished all of their questions, just stop for a second and say, as you think of this whole process, every step of the way, what are the main worries that come up in your mind? And I usually get new information. The client, I might be able to guess what their pain points are, but they'll tell me what's going to be keeping them up at night. And then we might have a bit of a further conversation. Like, I'm just so scared of putting my house for sale, well, okay. How about considering you wait until you have your work permit in hand and then putting it on the market? It's a choice. It's an option. You can do that. So that can really smooth the path for all parties, the client, most importantly, and us.
Marina, I keep interrupting you, but as I listen to you talk, there's two things that come to my mind. One, I know 100% why I brought you on, and it's because you are a lawyer who cares. And you can sense the fact that you have thought about this, so carefully that you absolutely care about the people that you represent. And you are the epitome of exactly why I created this Immigration Nation, is to show the world that not all lawyers are solely focused on money and lining our pockets with money, but that there are many of us, especially within the ranks of immigration lawyers, who do this because we love what we do. We genuinely care about our clients, and we want their experience in an extremely stressful time of their lives to be, well, for us to provide them the peace of mind and to ease that stress, so that the process can go forward without any more undue stress than they need. So, Marina, thank you for being awesome. And I mean that.
I appreciate, Mark, I know you and I have talked about this before, and it's certainly worth saying here that this work is a far more of a calling than a business. If we were after the money, there's a lot of other areas of law that we would do.
There sure is.
We'd be better off going into. Immigration law is definitely not about the money. We have to like it. There are non-professionals out there who do pursue it as a business, and the outcome is different. But I think for the large majority of immigration lawyers, it's because they love this area of law and they would rather be doing this than anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. What else did I have on my list as I look back up to my other screen?
You bet.
There's one thing that with clients, I have to give Dennis McCrae. I worked with him at his firm many years ago, but he taught me something and I value it so much to this day. Monthly file reviews. We're all busy, and I know a lot of lawyers are going to say, look, I know where my files are at. I have BFs in my system. When something important comes up, I'll see it. I don't need to be touching every file every month. And I'm here to say you do. It doesn't take long, and it gives you, I promise my colleagues that if they do these monthly file reviews, as Dennis insisted that I did from day one of my career as an immigration lawyer, thank you, Dennis, if you watch this, I do take a look at each of them and I turn my mind to them. And sometime every month, I can promise my colleagues, every month you're going to spot something that you want to look after. But also, more importantly, it's an opportunity to reach out to the client. There's great value. So when we send out an application, we send immediately, same day, usually as soon as FedEx has picked up the package or we have submitted it online, to the client a confirmation of submission, and it has outlined, here's the timeline, these are the next steps that you can expect right through to the end. This is when you can expect to hear from us. You might not hear from us for a while. Nevertheless, and please contact us if you have any questions. Nevertheless, there's such value in the clients hearing from us, even if it's only, I'm doing my monthly file reviews, everything's proceeding normally. At this point, no news is good news. But I would add something to that. And I know we're in the generation of workers who would rather die than pick up the phone and talk to someone. They want to type the email or send the text, right? But there's such value, even with corporate clients, family clients, etc., to pick up the phone and even leave a voice mail saying, that nice short message, you don't have to call me back. I just want you to know that I've done my monthly file reviews. Everything is continuing normally. And it's one of the reasons this is so important is because when we read the written word, especially, we're tired, we're not feeling well, whatever, we put our own tone on it if we haven't recently heard that person's voice. So we can hear their voice.
Now, Marina, this is me. If you see my head going down like this, it's because I'm making a note. And these are things that I need to change and implement in my practice. As I listen to you talk, why in the world do we not pick up the phone and call our clients and tell them when their application is approved? I was just thinking about this, and part of the reason, and once again, I don't mean to kind of sidetrack the discussion here, but I had a call with a client last week and we had submitted a very, very, it was an application to bring a dependent child with some permanent residents who've been outside of Canada for a long time. It was a facilitation TRV for the newborn child to come back. And this is in the midst of the pandemic. They were running out of time. They had to be back by July of next year to be able to retain their PR. Basically, they're crossing over to that 3-year period outside of Canada. And in this case, the client's application was approved in September. And, we were just so excited. And in this case, I worked collaboratively with him and he filed it through his own portal. And he sent me an email and confirmed that it was approved. And I was so excited. I talked with Igor, my right arm man here within our firm, and I was so excited. And I never acknowledged it. I thought I had sent him the email, but I hadn't. And then he booked a consult with me just last week and said, Mark, I sent you that email and you didn't even get a response. And I was horrified. We try to do everything we can to help our clients feel like we care. And when you talk about in the line of communication, I can't believe how applicable what you're saying right now is to me, right in the midst of growing this firm and establishing clear policies on communication, because email I hate. I wish there's a different way of doing it, because you've got 300 emails coming through, and and I probably flagged it and then just didn't go back and fully and thought I had. But it works both ways, right? When you reach out and you communicate, um, you know, clients, they love you. They are so grateful for this, right? That human touch. And when you don't, it's what message is that saying? Well, I don't really care about you, right? You've already paid my bill and the application's submitted, and and so it was a super valuable lesson. And yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's about sharing joy. Uh, I don't know if clients really understand how invested we do get into their cases, how excited we really are for them. I mean, picking up the phone and saying, calling Jane Smith and saying, "Hi, Jane," or should I say, Ms. Permanent Resident, and
Yeah.
hearing the reaction on the other end. I mean,
Yeah.
it's big news in our office with our staff that everybody wants to know that somebody was approved. So it is meaningful for us, and it's just a moment of pure joy. I mean, our work is pretty tough sometimes. A lot of work can be pretty stressful. Why not capitalize on these moments? There's
Yeah.
no downside to it.
Especially when you've had a file that is really touch and go. I had one recently, was express entry, and there was some medical issues, and we weren't sure if they were going to be a problem, and it had been hung up for almost a year. And then the approval came. The email that we get now: congratulations, you're a permanent resident. And you are right. Like, clients do not appreciate how much we care about the result too, and how happy we are for them when things work out and they can move on with their dreams and their hopes. And yeah, so cool.
Yep, absolutely. There are quite often in our office, an email comes in and there's a hoot and a holler, and yeah. So absolutely, it's sharing the joy. All right. I think that's about it for what I wanted to share, particularly about clients.
And we're
There's
not
more.
locked in, Marina. If you don't have something, after this, this hour, if you have another appointment, for sure we can cut her off, but we have time. And I love this discussion. So you
Perfect.
don't feel rushed.
All right. Well, I have so much to say. Okay. So on to staff now. Now, this really is a pain point in a lot of offices. You know, the we again, when I was a junior lawyer, and well, I always will, I'm sure, make missteps, get it wrong when I'm trying to get it right, and only realize moments later or much later. But you know, what some of the best advice I ever heard was treat your staff like their clients. Now, it's pretty hard to do because, I mean, there's that constant interaction and familiarity. So we can, we let a little more of our bad moods slip and that kind of thing. But I have learned a few things that I'll share, and I continue to learn. And one of them is put it in writing. So first, starting with the employment contract and policies, I am horrified with how many immigration lawyers have staff for whom they don't have any contract, or it's just a minimally drawn out one. It's an employment lawyer's nightmare.
Yeah.
And they get a proper employment contract and provide a list of firm policies right up front, but also like in the small ways too. I am
I'm making
many
notes again. I'm making notes again.
many a time I have caught myself thinking, I gave them instructions on that. Why didn't they carry out my instructions? When in fact, I either didn't give instructions or I didn't give instructions in the way I thought I gave them. So put it in writing. And so the way we do that in our office is the deal is if, because everybody's busy, right? We don't always, if we're in person or we're on a video conference, we're just going to quickly say something. If I don't then put it in writing in an email, the staff know that they should shoot me an email. Okay, per our conversation, you asked me to do A, B, C, D. I have a chance to jump in and go, no, I also mentioned E, or sorry, I forgot to mention E. That saves so much frustration in the office and misunderstandings. There's something to refer back to. So it's, we're all busy.
So you
we all have
provide verbal instructions, and then they respond back with written understanding of what they believe the instructions to be.
Yeah, most of the time that's our agreement. And I tell them, this is to protect you from my poor memory.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, sometimes I really do remember things incorrectly. We all do.
Yeah.
And I don't want that interfering. I never want a staff person to be like, she didn't say that though.
Yeah.
That'd be terrible, right?
That is so true. Like, I think just even recently, like Igor, who sets up all of this, he's like I said, he's my right arm man. He's a rock star. Like, he does it all. And so I can think of times where I think, well, I was sure I told you to do that, but I never made myself clear. And he's so awesome. He usually just remembers everything. And so, it's almost like it's almost a crutch for me. He compensates for my lack of communication skills. But no, these are awesome practices.
Yeah. Well, it saves pain later. I mean, it can be a bit of a bother in the moment, but really it's so worth it. And I think the other thing I have learned is triangle communication. Long, long ago, someone said to me, never tell the person that they're the problem or they've created the problem. Me to you did something wrong. It instead, there's me, there's you, and there's a problem between us, and we're going to solve this together, right? So, for example, let's say staff ask a client for information that we actually have on file from an ATIP or a past application that they provided to us. And nobody likes to be asked twice for, information, right? Not client's favorite thing. I already gave you that. So rather than saying, you didn't check the file, they already gave that to us. I'd like to try not to be saying that kind of thing. Say, okay, you know what? Because it is this is our firm. We asked for information they already gave us. And we already know that we're supposed to check these sources, but we didn't. So what can we do that would ensure that our memory is triggered to do that? What's your suggestion? And then we're a team. We're solving the problem together.
That's a great approach, a really, really good approach. Because the tendency very quickly is to find someone to blame, right? And someone's at fault. And nothing good ever comes from that. But if you approach it from the standpoint, okay, well, this happens. And often what I'll do is I'll say, if something happens like that, you know what? That has happened to me. Totally. I've done that before myself. So you kind of empathize with them. And then you say, okay, well, let's take a look at what went wrong here. What can we do to change within our systems and processes to try to ensure that maybe this won't happen again, essentially. And so I think, from that standpoint, it's a whole lot more productive than just berating someone for a mistake, because my goodness, our practice is so rough and tumble. Like, we have so many moving parts, and for staff to be able to keep track of everything and be perfect in it, like IRCC expects us to be, that's a superhuman feat that's just not fair to put on anyone. So I hear you.
Yeah, you just mentioned something, the word blame. My staff and I were having a conversation about this the other day. And just to illustrate how inclined to blame others we all are, just think of, you're at home and you're trying to find, I don't know whatever it is, the scissors. What's the first thing that you think?
Where did my spouse put
my
those?
husband, my wife, my kids, where did they put that? We never our brain goes to the other person having done this misdeed.
I'm actually gonna have my wife watch this after we're done, and she's gonna get such a kick out of it. You know, everything you're saying, you know, what you're talking about our communication with our clients, you know, with our staff. Oh, it works equally as well when it comes to our family relationships. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. So again, yeah, it's absolutely the same at work. And if we just slow down for a moment, because often when we slow down, if we have that thought to blame and we stop ourselves before we open our mouths, sometimes we'll realize it was our fault. We're the ones who last used the scissors, and then we're like, "Oh, sorry, it was me."
You're right.
So,
You're
yeah,
like, oh, darn it. That's right. I put it away. You know? Yeah, that's so calm.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah. So yeah, it goes for all human relations.
I'm gonna just
Okay.
put one thing up here, Marina, while we're talking here. I'll show you what I have the ability to do. So we're gonna pull this up just so that you can see that we have people that are listening. And so you
Yes.
can see here, Fanny says, hello, Mr. Holthe and Ms. Sedai. Firstly, thank you for the live stream and providing your experiences.
Very
So,
nice.
so
Well,
that is we do have people that are watching live. And for those of you who are tuning in, I just want to let you know that, you know, near the end, if you do have some questions, we'll do a little bonus because I know that a lot of people are so used to me getting on and answering questions. And, you know, I think we're going to devote some time at the end to answer a few questions. If you have questions specifically about communication, or you even have tips or strategies from a client perspective that you would like to share with Marina and I, because look, we're approaching this from our paradigm as an immigration lawyer, but you may have some really good insight with your experiences and the things that you absolutely love your representative to do, or the things that you hate or that are super frustrating that you would like to share with us. Just post those now, and then I'll pull those on and your comments as we close to the end, because hey, like the best way to figure out communication is by hearing from both sides. So we'll approach that.
you just, people's clients' complaints about their representatives, you just reminded me of something that I think is very important. Some might disagree with me. However, it's this. If someone does not know what their representative looks like or sounds like,
Thank you.
and then run for the hills,
Yes.
because a good representative is going to be transparent. Picture on their website, talking to them on the phone, on video conference, communicating over email. There are some representatives out there who I have had again and again, clients in my office saying to me, well, yeah, I went to this one company, but I don't know the name of my representative. I just saw their name on the use of rep. I always dealt with other people.
Yes.
That's not a good thing.
No. No.
No.
You're right, Marina. When I started my Canadian immigration podcast, one of the things that I wanted to do with that was to give myself an opportunity to open up and let people know who I was. So they could, so I talked about myself. I talked about what I did. I talked about my interests, things like that. But people knew who I was and could build a relationship with me because I was more than just a website or a fancy infomercial on and I hated websites that were nameless and faceless, that you never knew who was representing you. And that's a really, really super important tip. And I'll give you one little practical story because this is what brings life into these little episodes. I had a consult last week with someone that had paid $60,000 US for their job offer. Yep. And had never had any contact with the ICCRC rep in Vancouver, who had found them the job in Atlantic Canada. And all they had dealt with was the individuals in their Asian country. And he was contacting me to get advice on the application process. And I thought to myself, okay, leaving aside the $60,000 US that's being paid for a job offer, I'll leave aside the legalities of that. But my goodness, why in the world would you ever fork over any money to any organization unless you had an opportunity to actually connect with them. And we see it all across the world, Marina. And it's also it never ceases to amaze me how willing people are to take advantage of their own countrymen. It just boggles my mind, right? The people that you're most wanting to trust, who are, from where you're from, who speak the language you speak, and yet are getting ahead by pushing you down. And so that's a whole different immigration nation discussion there, Marina, and it's kind of taken us off into a different path. But you opened it up, so I couldn't help myself.
I completely agree with you. Hey, I'm located in Surrey, BC.
I know.
And Surrey is, I've said it many times, I've said it in the media, I'll say it again. Surrey is a hotbed of immigration fraud. And I have people coming into my office who have gone to immigration consultants, and I will say consultants, and saying, I've had someone in here who paid $130,000, and for something that we would have charged a tiny fraction.
Yeah.
And their immigration plans, not only did they spend that much, but their immigration plans were ruined. And I just thought, wow, you trusted so easily because it was, a compatriot, someone who shared your language, and you barely had any communication with that person. If only you'd at least get a second opinion from a lawyer, and compare the two.
And this is the thing, Marina, that I love most about the world we're moving into. This whole modern world where people have access to broadband, where people have access to iPhones and Androids, where they can connect with you and I here in Canada, us Canadian immigration lawyers, regardless of where they live in the world. And my practice is literally, Marina, it's a joy to me right now. I never know before, when I wake up in the morning, who I'm going to get to connect with all over the world. And, and it's because of this video conferencing, and they can see me, I can see them. We can talk as if I'm right there with them. And in fact, the way we can use screen sharing and things like that, it's almost better than when we met in person with the old paper and pen and taking notes. But yeah, I'm so excited about the future because I want to smash to pieces all of those overseas agents who are illegal, they're not even regulated consultants. I want to smash that industry to pieces through technology. And so that's my mission. And, I will qualify the fact that I've worked with some excellent immigration consultants, and excellent immigration consultants as well. And KPIC and the other associations are always slamming me when I'm too hard on consultants. And there are some excellent ones out there, but there are so many that are just terrible. That sole purpose is to exploit and to take advantage of people who have no freaking clue what they're doing. And it's those that I want to crush out of the market. And I hope that, the consultant organization wants to do the same thing too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. There are, especially former government officers who have become consultants. Yeah. As a group, I have a great deal of respect for them.
And I've worked myself with them.
Yeah, they're coming from the right ethical background.
Absolutely.
And so I absolutely respect them, and I have referred work to those. Yeah, but
I'm just going to randomly put up some comments. You keep talking and don't be distracted by them, but I want to give people shouts out that are watching live. And you can see Bar says, thanks a lot for providing the video. And this is my favorite part. 3 a.m. in Dubai, but I love watching it. And this is it, Marina. Like, these people are so awesome. And yeah, it's just, it's great. And I'm going to put right here, let's see what this says. I tried to call a representative and I asked him and he said he can't. So anything to provide the PR, what should I do? So basically, these individuals are struggling with this whole aspect of communication, right? And so it's really neat to see who's watching and who's listening. So
yeah, I will stress that it's absolutely, to all the people out there who are would-be applicants, it's your right, and I would dare say it's your duty to yourself and your family to get second, even third opinions. And, it might seem like, oh, I don't want to pay for multiple consults, but if it saves you, you know, from your ruined plans, or it saves you from spending $60,000 or $130,000 that you didn't need to spend, it's worth it. It can save so much time and pain and
I
money.
agree. Especially if the question, if the cost of that service, I would maybe put $6,000 or $7,000 as the threshold. But if they're asking you to pay $10,000 or more, it is well worth it. Like I charge $200 for a 25-minute consult. I'm sure, Marina, you're right in that range. But you get a short little consult as a second opinion before you spend that $10,000+ on whatever service is being offered. Is money well worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So the next few comments that I have are sort of can apply to anyone. But I think the number one thing, we all have heard this, we all know this. Listen.
Yeah.
The old
I'm terrible.
you have two
I'm a
ears
terrible
and one
listener.
mouth.
I'm terrible.
I know you
I'm a
listen,
fixer.
you hear,
I'm a man,
okay.
Marina. I'm a fixer, right? Like, okay, I understand your problem. Oh, you don't even have to tell me. I already know what the problem is. This is the solution, Marina. This is how you fix it. Okay. All right, let's move on to something else. Right.
We don't want to be the hero.
Oh my goodness. This is, yeah.
Truly, listening is an awesome skill. I mean, we've all had that experience of that rare human being that when we're talking to them, they are with us.
Yeah.
They don't, a big mistake I made for so long and I regret it. But regardless of who I was talking to, if they told me about something, especially a problem, an issue, whether it was a client, maybe less so with clients, might have been with staff, colleagues, I would too quickly try to empathize with my own experience. And now I understand that is one way in which empathy is a misstep. And it's much better for me to zip my lips. It's not time for me to talk about myself yet, and stick with them. Hear it, make sure I've got it right, be curious, right? Be curious enough to ask them questions, and leave me out of it. No matter how great my story might be, in the case where they have an issue that they really need to discuss. So then after time, and especially if somebody asks, well, what has your experience been with this? Do you have any advice? But that's part of the beauty of our work is that people want our advice. When we go home at night, that's usually not the case.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
We need to know when to stop giving advice. So yeah, just purely listening and making sure that we have the person's issue right, and then asking them, if they have an issue. Even with my staff, when they come to me and there's a problem, I try to remember. I don't always succeed, but I try to remember to say, okay, so that's the issue. So how do you want to solve that? And support them in that way without telling them what to do, because dollars to donuts, I'm going to come up with some great solution, and they're not going to think it's so great.
That's a good point. Marina, one of the things that I have learned over time is the importance of asking the client, well, what have you looked into so far? Like, what have you discovered on your own first? Because I don't want to tell you things that you already know. So I always like to start with that, from that basis, and then I can assess kind of where they're at. And sometimes they'll say, well, I haven't really looked at anything. And then another person will say, I've read everything I can get my hands on this topic. And then we can really, once again, I'm kind of a fixer and maybe I need to be more a listener, but drill down to what the main, most important things are, so that in the course of the consultation that they're paying for, they are truly getting the information and advice that they need, and not just me restating something that they already know.
That is an Excellent point. Yes, I have made that misstep many times.
Yes,
I'm
I
marking
finally have one thing that I'm doing good. Yes.
many times I've been marching through my whole spiel, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 I know that." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm derailed." So yes, checking in and knowing what they know, and the misunderstandings that I can clarify. So absolutely, yeah. Oh, here I have another one on my list, and this is one of my favorites. I haven't done a lot of improv, but this lesson comes from improv for anyone out
Hmm.
there who has done it. When you're playing in improv, when one is playing off the other person and you're trying to keep the conversation going, we very quickly learn what kills a conversation, what really shuts down communication when we're intending the opposite. So whether it's clients or staff, we're in meetings with our government colleagues, especially.
Mhm.
Yeah, but needs to go. We have in our office, we have a butt jar. It's kind of like the swear jar, and it got a little bit of a treat change in it, especially in the beginning. Less so now. It is a habit that so many of us
Ah,
have, and I catch myself all the time. Someone says
yeah.
something, and before they're barely finished saying what they're trying to get
Yep.
across,
Yep.
I dive in because I've
In
already been
there,
thinking about my
right in
response.
there. Yep.
I stop listening. I'm talking about what I want to say, and I jump in. How am I going to make them wrong?
Yeah.
And I and like,
Yeah.
and it's horrible to actually say that out loud, but that's what we're doing. And so
This
I
is
jump in with,
therapeutic for me,
nah,
Marina. This is very therapeutic for me.
yeah, get rid of the yeah, but. So it's as they teach in improv, yes, and.
Mm,
Uh, and it doesn't always need to be that we're completely agreeing with the person.
yeah,
There's a way to pivot with yes and. It's at least giving us a chance to acknowledge what the other person has said before adding our own information. And then rather
absolutely.
than being a contradiction, it becomes an addition. And the conversation with both parties is carried forward a little smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true, Marina. I can't tell you how many times I have yes. Yeah, but like and I keep applying this as much to my personal relationships as I do to my practice. This episode is universal. Literally, the principles that we're talking about here, good communication skills are just universal. And yeah, and clearly there are so many, there's so many aspects of good communication that are hard to that are hard to master. Like we're not perfect, we're not. But just some of the little things that you've talked about here, like I literally have been making notes, as things come to my mind that, wow, yes, I need to do better at this and this. And we know them, but sometimes it's just so helpful to be reminded of them and to step outside ourselves and realize, you've got a little bit of room for improvement. And like you identified, when it comes to communicating with our clients, it just makes everything so much better. I'll give a little shout out here to Rana. He says, today you came with a splendid live stream. Seriously, it is very helpful, especially you both speaking from the heart. Keep it up the way it is. And you know what? That's really what it's all about, right? It comes down to this whole mindset of caring, which that is what I want to infuse back into, this whole industry of ours, is just this significant element of caring and how important it is.
Oh, absolutely. To care, to have a good outcome, to share the joy, to, get all the things we want, the client wants, our staff want, our government colleagues want, um, our bar colleagues want, just a smoother, straighter path towards that. While mentioning government colleagues, especially, but
Mm-hmm.
this goes
We've
with
just gotten
anyone.
through our rounds of meetings with, I think we just finished the CVSA yesterday. And so, yeah, we went through all those government meetings. And so, yeah, communication is so critical, so
Yeah,
critical.
yeah. I I it's so much better when we live in the gray, where things aren't black and white, right? This person's bad, that person's good. We're on the light side or the dark. They're
Yes.
on the dark side. There's no profit in that. There's no social, meaningful profit. I'm not meaning dollar signs, of course, but in terms of meaning in our careers, achieving our goals, getting what our clients need, really a bit of empathy is in order. When somebody wants to say that colleagues at certain types of firms or colleagues in government or some other group is they want to assume their intention, stop right there, because what we need to think is, if I were doing that job, what would be my intention? And so how can I assume someone has a different intention, that they care less or more?
Yeah.
And so, our government colleagues do care.
Yeah.
They're a large workforce like anyone else. In the private bar, people do care. Not everybody.
Yeah. No.
There are going to be the ones that the complaints are about, whether private bar, within government or elsewhere. But people, for the most part, they all want to do a good job and find meaning in the work that they do, and we're all working toward the same goal. Ultimately, we're on the same side. And government wants immigrants in an effective, safe manner. So do we. All I can do is encourage my colleagues to take it from there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
respect their colleagues accordingly.
Yeah. And Marina,
I
I'll
know
add.
it's frustrating at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. No, then that's it. Like, sometimes our emotions just, we're so frustrated. Like, let's take some of the more recent things that we're seeing. So one is this representative issue. And I know that the consultants are experiencing this every bit as much as lawyers are, but challenges with our use of representative forms being rejected and not being able to communicate, critical information to the department, and how quick we are to jump on and kind of vilify people, right? And I understand our frustrations. I really do. There's nothing worse than putting your heart and soul into something, and then some civil servant kicks back, an application when there was no reason for it to happen. And so there's always that balance of trying to always put yourself in the shoes of people on the other side. And in our meetings with the CBSA yesterday, I remember I just explained, I had an opportunity to work on the border as an officer, which has been immeasurably helpful for me as I've become a lawyer, because it's helped me to put myself into the shoes of the decision maker on the other side for the benefit of my clients when I'm completing applications, but also to understand what an officer is going through, and to maybe have a little bit more compassion, when things don't go perfectly, and a little bit more patience. And taking that approach it's just blessed my practice immeasurably. I'm not perfect. I get angry when an officer makes a stupid decision. Like I do, when they haven't taken the time to actually read my submission, or I know they don't care. I do have a short kind of patience fuse when it comes to that. But wow, interacting with the federal government, interacting with the members of parliament, the heads of IRCC, CBSA, they are good people who are genuinely trying to make things better in right now what is a crazy world. And so I just want to give a big shout out to all of them. So
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit, like I say, it really is empathy and respect. And if, let's say, there is a situation where a wrong has been committed, a mistake has been made, maybe worst case scenario, like you say, on rare occasion, it'll be because somebody doesn't care, the worst kind of mistake. The next thing is, if our writing or our voice hits 10 right off the bat, we have nowhere to go from there. It's okay to be angry, but cool down, be professional. If very, I actually never in my career have I had to go to 10. I've never had to raise my voice. But it's there. It's reserved as a possibility. so,
Yes.
so just, start out calm, professional, academic, and take it from there.
Yeah. Marina, one piece of advice that has helped me, I remember I learned this when I was articling at Gowlings in Calgary when I started. And I remember one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was, if you're upset about something and you very quickly start to type out this email, do not send it until the next day. Do not send it until the next day. Give yourself some time to kind of cool down a little bit, and then read that same email again the next day and see if you may just not might want to you may just might want to change a few things that you've got in there. And it was just, yeah, tremendously helpful information. I'm going to pull up another comment here. So this is my right arm man here, Igor. It looks like he's tuning in from Calgary. He says, so far my most favorite stream of all time. He says, I wish I could hear this before I retained a lawyer in LA. Mark knows. In the case of Igor, communication was a massive problem with his counsel in California, and him and his wife wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be working for me if it wasn't for communication breakdown with their immigration attorney in the US. And fortunately, things worked out. And those of you who are interested in Igor's story can just search through the YouTube channel and you'll find where he came on and talked about his story. But it's amazing when you have someone that just doesn't care. And that was the situation. And then I'll pull up Sylvia's comment here, sharing is caring, truth at Igor. So this is the kind of thing that I like. This is the kind of followers that I want. And we're just, I think, crossed over 23,000 subscribers now to this little YouTube channel, but it's full of people that are awesome, just like Sylvia here. So,
yeah. Well, this is also in large part about setting expectations. If people don't know what they can expect from a lawyer, then they might accept something less than they should. So, yes, should be a lawyer who communicates. We're not always going to do it perfectly, but you can expect a bit more attention and communication for sure than some will offer. Let's see. Oh, are we doing okay for time?
Yeah, we're totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. There's something else I want to bring up. My favorite recent topic.
We can talk about anything here. This is open.
Okay. So it's with under communication, and this works really well when communicating with a client, staff, colleagues, especially when communicating with our government colleagues. And it is the difference between straw manning and steel manning. So straw manning is where we don't even realize what we're doing, but we disagree with what the other person is saying, and we jump in to say, oh, so what you're really saying is, or something like that, and we make a caricature or we exaggerate their argument in some way, and to make it easier to tear down. That's not helpful. When it's been done to us, that's usually the moment where we don't really know exactly what's happened, but we go, wait, no, I didn't say that. When we're having that reaction, we've just been straw man. Somebody has said that we said something that we didn't, and they're telling us we're wrong.
Okay, so basically that's the solid, well, it's the complete foundation of all political discourse during the midst of a campaign. So that's what you're saying, is that's the foundation of any communication in the context of a political campaign. Wonderful.
You nailed it. You've got it exactly right. You want to see straw manning, you just tune into any one politician speaking about their opponent. There's a better way, and it's called steel manning. And it's this, where, again, it goes back to listening, where we stop and say to the person who's been speaking, we could completely think they're wrong. It could be the clients that saying something that's completely off base, our government colleagues saying something we think is, not good policy, whatever the case might be. But before we give our own opinion, repeat back what we understand their position to be. And quite often we might be surprised and get back from them, no, that's not quite what I was saying. I was saying this. Or we might get back, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then another step, and this is really tough when we're disagreeing with someone, that is to further buttress, strengthen their argument. So they might have missed something that would put their argument in the best possible position. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, here's your argument. Here it is in the best light possible. Do you agree? Yes. Now, in some cases, maybe in our personal lives, we just want to shut up there, let it go at that point. But sometimes we don't have that luxury. We're in a meeting, we're discussing important issues, and there are problems at hand that need to be solved. Then if we want to attack the policy, the idea, the procedure, whatever it is, we're attacking the real thing. And if we can, and by attack, I mean just, good reasoned argument.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? And if our argument is so strong that after holding up theirs in the best possible light, we can still show how there is a better approach or it's not working out the way that as intended, then we've won with our argument, and we've won in the most honest of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. That's awesome insight.
Yeah. So the use of rep issue is a good example. So I know it's frustrating. People have sent in their application packages, and it has a use of rep in it, and then 3, 4, 5 months later, they haven't heard anything back, especially during COVID. And they send in more information via the web form, and the agent comes back and says, we cannot find you as representative on file. Please submit a new use of rep. And the lawyer's head nearly implodes, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that you fill out these additional sections as to what kind of application it was, and where it was submitted.
Yes.
And so, it's, if we don't stop and say, okay, well, what is the argument here? What are the possible things that could make that actually a correct thing or an understandable thing to do? Then we're at a disadvantage. Maybe understand that for the first 5 months after March, there were, well, even still, there's a whole lot of paper applications that were just sitting there, and nobody knew that they had been submitted yet. Nobody could see that what it was, or that there's a use of rep on file. So we're talking to them about a file they have no idea about. So we need to understand that. They might not be explaining that in their agent email to us, but if we take that moment and steel man their position, it hasn't been scanned in yet. You don't know that there's a use of rep on file. Then we can't really counter it. And maybe we'll also discover once we steel man it that we don't need to counter it. The situation is what it is. Yeah. Nobody can do anything about it. Just give the darn new use of rep and let's move on.
Interesting. I've definitely heard of the straw man, Marina, but the steel man is a new concept to me. So this makes a lot of sense. It really does. A lot.
It's really a helpful tool, and it hurts a little bit at first because when we're disagreeing with someone, we don't want to strengthen their position, but really it has a better outcome.
Yeah, I agree. That's
awesome. So that's been on my mind a whole lot lately. And you can really it's just so based in respect. When you hear two people speaking who disagree with each other and they take the time to steel man each other before saying why they disagree and on the basis, it's no longer a disdainful argument. It's it's a conversation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's awesome.
So
Well,
I think
Marina,
that for the most
how are we
part
doing?
is
Do you have any other last minute kind of nuggets of wisdom that you can share with the listeners? We've had really, really good interaction. I'm only pulling up a fraction of the comments that I see coming down, from all of the people that are tuning in on YouTube and Facebook. And I want to thank all of them for tuning in and engaging. And I can see them talking amongst themselves. And this is what it's all about. It's about communication, right?
fabulous. Yeah, no, I think that's about it. This is something that we can go on and on about, and it's a topic that fascinates me because really, especially as lawyers, that is what we do. We
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah.
And so in my view, we have to be thinking about this, and very much like what you said earlier, it's about striving towards, being better. It's not about being perfect and getting it right every time because we just can't, but we can try.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. All right. Well, in the description, there's a link if you'd like to connect with Marina and you're looking for some assistance. My link's there, but you guys know where to find me. Obviously, you can see that Marina is one of those lawyers who's just doing it right. Just an awesome person who cares about the people she represents. And I'll be honest, if you guys chose to retain her, it would be this is awesome. Check this out. So I'm officially getting an Alberta. This is COVID times right here, folks. This is a notification saying that now the Alberta rules of lockdown are officially in place. And they do a blast onto your phone. I know the screen with the blur feature you can't really see here, but yeah, so I just got this notification. Nothing like getting your live stream hijacked, but that's okay. This is important stuff. We are in the world of COVID, and this is a rough and tumble period of time. But back to what I was saying about Marina, absolutely is someone that I have the utmost respect for. I've known her for so many years, serving with her on the Canadian Bar Association, and she's gone through and served for so many years, just recently dropping off as a table officer. She was the immediate past chair last year, and now she's dropped off the table for our national immigration law section. And I really miss her, I'll tell you, as a part of that group. She's still involved in some other capacities because she could never stay away for long. But Marina is the kind of lawyer that's just doing it right. And I want to flip over here and just show you, this is her website right here. And if you're interested in connecting with her, yes, there's the link in the description, but also you can go right here to her website. And one of the things you'll see here on her page, like we've been talking about today, is her team. And so lo and behold, you can actually see who is working in her office. And so this is what we're talking about. And the contact page right here is the best one. Well, really, it has all the information, the ways that you can reach out to her. So Marina, like she said, she's located in Surrey, British Columbia. But just like me, we can assist you no matter where you live in this wonderful, wonderful planet. So Marina, thank you so much for joining me. This was an absolute delight. This was just the biggest pleasant surprise. And at first I wasn't quite sure how this all fit in, but now, my goodness, I'm going to promote this like crazy all over, including on our listserv, because I think this discussion that we've had here can benefit all of our members every bit as much as any other lawyer in any other area of practice. So it's going out on LinkedIn. It's going to be on the YouTube. It's going to go out through every channel I can find, because you knocked it out of the park, my friend. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Mark.
All right. Okay, guys, we will see you again next time as I bring in another awesome immigration lawyer from across the country to join me in another episode of Immigration Nation. See you later.